Preventive measures in the planning.
Tina, which microphone is picking up the sound?
It's actually picking up.
Is it?
From up here?
It'll pick up from that too.
These are like,
She's got to turn on.
we only have about 1 minute, so.
Okay.
You want to send?
It should be on.
Okay, it is 7 o'clock. We will call to order the special meeting June 4th, 2020 of the Trinity County Planning Commission. First item on the agenda is public comment. During the public comment period, members of the public may address the Planning Commission on matters not listed on the agenda, which are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the Planning Commission. Is there anyone wishing to speak in the public comment period?
What is the subject matter jurisdiction by which the planning department has oversight?
That could be a pretty open-ended question.
Could it come from financial tax dollars based from the county that are used to fund the county sources?
No. That's not their, that's not their.
No, the planning commission is in charge of implementing the general plan and the zoning ordinance on land use matters.
And that would be the totality?
That is the totality.
Thank you, sorry, I'm around.
That's okay.
All right, is there anyone via Zoom who would like to address the planning commission during the public comment period?
That's on the jurisdiction.
Okay.
Okay,
Here?
with that, we will close public comment and continue on to minutes. Approval of the minutes from the meeting held April 23rd. Commissioners?
I will make a motion to approve the minutes as presented for April 23rd, 2020.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. One order of business we probably should address, though. I forgot to see if we had Commissioner Stewart on the line.
Your name unless you have the number.
Oh, ST.
Diana, are you on?
If she's on, you need to do a roll call vote on all votes.
Okay.
I hear.
Okay, Diana, are you with us? Commissioner Stewart, are you up on Zoom?
Oh, it's that, Stuart, I think she is.
I think he's trying to mouth out that she's muted.
Yeah.
Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, they're saying that she's muted, and it's showing still the muted sign on the bottom left corner.
We understand, we're trying to fix it.
Okay, she should be.
Okay,
There she is.
it's good now.
Okay, with that, we are going to start over with our minutes. So, we we have a motion and a second to approve the minutes, and we will do a roll call vote.
Okay, for clarification, I did not hear who seconded.
I did.
All right, Commissioner McHugh.
Aye.
Okay. Commissioner Matthews, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Stewart, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Ford,
Aye.
Commissioner, or Chair Frazier, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Frazier, if I may, I did see up on the screen that it looked like maybe there were a few people that did want to, that missed public comment.
Okay, because they were muted.
Because they're muted, I saw some messages coming through, so maybe it'd be a good idea to return to the public comment period to make sure we did offer an adequate opportunity.
Okay, we will do that. So, because we've had some technical issues, I will reopen the initial public comment. So, members of the public can address the commission on matters not listed on the agenda that are within the subject matter jurisdiction of the planning commission. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to address the commission? Okay.
Okay, I'm unmuted.
All right.
Hi, good evening. I was just going to comment that you might want to let the public know how you want to be addressed, because there were several people trying to get somebody's attention when you did public comment. They may not know that you want to use the format of having them raise their hand, and that you have someone assigned to watch for that at that point. So that it's just a little unclear how you're going to be running it. Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have Liz McIntosh.
Okay. Liz?
Can you all hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Good evening, Chair Frazier and Commissioners, McIntosh, Junction City. First and foremost, I just wanted to thank Commissioner Ford for representing the 4th District so well. I was just informed today that he would not be continuing on to serve under Supervisor Brown, and I'm hopeful that his successor will represent just as well, but I'm saddened to hear the news. I feel he's been very fair and balanced no matter the topic, and that he's brought an intelligent and informed and pragmatic perspective for our planning commission, so I just wanted to thank him for his service. But I came tonight basically just to give you a little update on the Smith Pit Mine operation in Junction City. Last we heard, we'd likely see this item brought to you on an agenda in not until a public meeting would be able to commence as normal. And so now that it's been almost 3 months since I stood before you in person, and due to the way this project operates, and because you don't know when we'll have in-person meetings again, I'm wondering if maybe that should be reconsidered. Since the closure, we've seen a ramp up of activity from this operation. We've again made several formal complaints and submitted evidence, but we haven't heard anything as far as whether any action has taken place to curb their activity, or whether or not any violations have been issued. One of the project's closest neighbors has documented them working on April 11th and 12th, which is not only a weekend, but the Easter holiday, as well as the weekends of April 18th to 19th and the 25th and 26th. I have aerial photography with date stamps of them utilizing more than one screener on site. Their activity this week alone is completely blown up with as many as 10 trucks rumbling down our small residential road all together at 7:30 a.m. and then back and forth all day long. All these things are violations of their use permit, and it doesn't end there. I can't say it enough, if this was some property in a residential neighborhood who decided they could have an acre cannabis grow, even though they were only permitted for a cottage grow, this would not be tolerated. We're just at a total loss as to what to do as this goes unabated and why nothing is being done. We're frustrated. And on that note, I wonder if it's in the purview of the Planning Commission to possibly bring forward the complaint system. I understand that it's anonymous to protect people, but I feel like the option to not be anonymous so that you could maybe have follow-up, I would take that in a heartbeat when it comes to this project. So, for what it's worth, thank you so much for hearing me out tonight.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during public comment? Okay, and with that, as our first commenter said, we should make it clear how we're going to be looking for the people on Zoom. The people who are wanting to speak, if you raise your hand, make yourself seen. We have someone watching to get a hold of you, and then we'll call you up. So now let's see. We will move on to agenda item number 2, conditional use permit. Staff.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. Good evening. My name is Lisa Lozier. I'm the Deputy Director of Planning for Trinity County, and I will be presenting agenda item number 2 for you. This is a conditional use permit for Best Development. It's for grocery outlet. And what else do I have? Yeah, let's get started. So this project is located, the site is located along SR 299, it's a commercial corridor, Main Street through the Weaverville area. It is primarily accessed, this project is primarily accessed from SR 299, and it has a secondary access off of Levy Road. So it is basically on the corner of Levy Road and 299. And just to give you kind of a perspective, it is approximately 0.7 miles away from the center, or I'm just watching this, I'm sorry. It is 0.7 miles from State Highway 3. Okay, so you will probably have noticed that as you receive different information, it's got 2 project numbers that are typically assigned with this, so I want to take the time to explain that. When this project first came in, it was listed as P-19-19, and that is the project number for the conditional use permit. This project also requires a lot line adjustment because the way the project site is configured, it would set on what is currently 4 parcels. In order for this project to be developed, there needs to be an additional land use for adjusting, so it would merge 3 parcels, and then it would do an adjustment with the 4. So we have 2 projects, and the lot line adjustment is actually P-19-32. So that's why you have 2 project numbers listed on your items, And I just wanted to make sure if we listed both of them, that anybody that had seen legal notices that were just listed with the 1932 number, that they would understand that these projects go together. That, you know, so nobody's missing out on commenting, that they understand. So ultimately, as I said, this project consists of currently 4 parcels. 3 of them will be merged, 1 of them will be adjusted. The final acreage for the project site is 2.21 acres. The remaining 0.73 acres will be set aside. It is not part of this project. And for the lot line adjustment and merger, that project is required to be recorded and finalized prior to issuance of any land development permits for this project. That is a condition of approval. For the project description, this is development of a 20,000 square foot commercial retail facility. It's a grocery store, grocery outlet. The applicant estimates that approximately 15 to 20 individuals will be employed at the grocery store, 5 to 7 employees working at any particular time. Proposed project will construct a paved parking lot, providing 67 parking stalls and 88 parking stalls as is required. It has drainage has been thoroughly evaluated by Department of Transportation, and for access, Caltrans has also weighed in on traffic, you know, any type of traffic counts or number of traffic and the way it's configured. They have weighed in and are comfortable with the results of the traffic study that was done. The proposed project also includes signage, which is the monument sign, as is consistent with the Weaverville Community Plan, and also landscaping, which takes into account the interests of the Weaverville Community Plan as far as types of foliage. So for this project, you know, we always look at planning projects as, you know, the question is it consistent? Is it consistent with your planning ordinance? Is it consistent with the general plan? For this particular project, the general plan in that area is for commercial uses, recognizes that retail commercial uses are appropriate for the general plan. And the Weaverville Community Plan also, as a part of the general plan, mirrors that same language as appropriate for commercial retail uses. On zoning compliance, the zoning district for that area is C2, which is general commercial. The general commercial allows retail sales and services when they are conducted within a building, and that is consistent with the type of use that is being proposed for you this evening. The environmental review was done for this project. It is a discretionary project. Does not qualify for any CEQA exemption, so a mitigated negative declaration was provided for this project. A number of studies were done, and for the project, when it was released to the public, there were comments from Fish and Wildlife, and we also received one comment from a member of the public in regard to traffic and circulation. So Fish and Wildlife had some concerns with various migratory bird species and nesting. There are a number of conditions in the mitigations that cover what is required for nesting species for prior to construction, for bio-surveys to be done to verify that there are, you know, if there are any type of species available or on that site, that they are properly taken care of. And on that environmental review for the mitigated negative declaration, There were impacts identified to air quality, biological resources, cultural resources, geology, soils, greenhouse gas emissions, noise, and tribal cultural resources. No impacts were identified that were significant and unavoidable, and all of these items have specific conditions associated with them that are included in the conditions of approval. So that brings us to memorandums, which quite frankly, I've never done more memorandums for one project, so bear with me. I know it's a tremendous amount of paperwork for you guys, and I appreciate your willingness to go through it. So 4 memorandums in total. First one to Planning Commission on April 22nd. And the important thing, or the first thing on this particular memorandum, is there were some proposed changes to conditions that the applicant had requested changes to condition number 1 and condition number 2. And the applicant worked with Department of Public Works, Department of Transportation, sorry, I'm going back to Shasta County. And they came to an agreement on what those conditions ought to say. And in that memorandum, there is a strike-through copy of the resolution and Exhibit A, which shows how those conditions have been changed. So those conditions were agreed upon. The other item that the applicant questioned was item number 14, and that was for their sewage, their disposal. They were asking for, I think it was a clean out that would be outside of the store for like a grease trap clean out. And for grocery outlet, they don't have anything like a deli or any type of food prep area, so they felt that that would be unnecessary. And they worked they worked to get the condition removed. With the CSD, yes, thank you very much. So that was an agreement, and we have written agreement from both parties on that. Also, with that particular memorandum, we had received 2 letters, one from McKinley, Conger, Jolly, and Darlano, LLP, with some questions, and a email from Palesa Peralta, and I apologize if I have not gotten her name correct, with some concerns in regard to the type of impacts that grocery outlet may have on the community. Second memorandum was prepared for commission on April 23rd. That memorandum also had additional letters, and those letters came in the day of Planning Commission, and it was discussed with Chairman and Dan Frazier and staff that because of the content of those letters, we thought it might be in the best interest to request a continuance to the May 14th meeting, so we would have an opportunity to take a look at those letters and define what they were about, and make some comments on those. So meeting was continued to the 14th, and the meeting of the 14th, because we are living in interesting times, that meeting was also continued. The meeting was canceled, and the items on the agenda were continued to the May 28th meeting. So, at that point, we had prepared additional information for the commission, and we had a very unfortunate situation for the May 28th meeting where we were not able to legally make our postings. Our legal notices were not posted properly, so we scheduled the meeting we're having tonight for June 4th, a special meeting, so we could continue with the business of the public. So that brings us to May 29. We have received additional letters. Additional letters were proposed for the Planning Commission that were supposed to be heard at the May 28th. I didn't know, there was a little bit more detail in the memorandum that was prepared for the May 28th meeting. I didn't know if you wanted to go into any kind of detail on that. We can just move forward and you can ask questions if you would like. There was a brief memorandum with 3 additional letters that I believe all of those letters were in support of the project. And then we have received a couple more letters, 2 of which that I emailed to the commissioners, another one from the original law group that commented, and then, yeah, we had 2 additional emails that came through tonight, which I have presented copies for you here. And then another email from Dana Ryan, which he sent this morning in support of the project. So, all of that said, short any other discussion, I will just skip to the recommendation, and then that way if we have discussions or you have questions, particular questions, then we can get to that. So staff would recommend that the Planning Commission make a motion to adopt a resolution to adopt the California Environmental Quality Act determination of a mitigated negative declaration and with the mitigation monitoring and reporting program, adopt the recommended findings listed in resolution 2020-05 as amended, and approve conditional use permit 1919 based on the recommendations and subject to the conditions of approval set forth in condition A or exhibit A to the resolution 2020-05 as amended. And that concludes my staff report. I would be glad to answer questions for you.
Thank you. Commissioners, any questions of staff?
Lisa, the resolution text that is the actual resolution text that you recommending is that resolution the strikeout version that's in the 22?
That is correct, yes.
And follow-up question, the second project with the lot plan adjustment, does that come here for any discussion?
No.
Does that end up as a condition of approval for the
That is a
commission?
condition of approval for this project.
Okay, I did not see that in the condition of approval. Did I just miss that? But that is where it would be.
Yes, yes, it would be.
We'll double check when we get to the resolution.
Okay.
Any other questions of staff before we open to the public?
Don't forget to ask Diane.
Diana, do you have any questions of staff?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Okay, that then, we will open this item up to public comment. Do we have any commenters in the room?
Chairman Frazier, Planning Commission members, my name is Terry Johnson, and I'm one of the partners with Best Development Group, the applicant. We are based in Sacramento and have been building shopping centers in California for about 45 years. We've been developing grocery outlet stores specifically about the last 6 years in Northern California and Northern Nevada. In fact, we just had a grand opening in Dayton, Nevada this morning where I was at 9 o'clock. Here with me tonight is our civil engineer, Dwayne Miller. And then looking at the Zoom list of participants, I have our architect on the Zoom call. I have our traffic engineer on the call. I have our land use attorney on the call and a grocery outlet representative. And they're all listed there. I won't go through their names right now. And so they're standing by to answer any questions that I can't answer for you if you have any. First of all, I want to thank the county staff for working with us since January of 2019, when we first submitted our application for this project. After many discussions, many revisions, numerous studies required by the California Environmental Quality Act and Trinity County, we have completed all of those studies and all of those requirements, and we are in agreement with all of the conditions of approval for the project. I'll take just a few minutes and then I'll be done. I also want to give you some background on Grocery Outlet. We had provided a PowerPoint presentation to Lisa. It's about 5 minutes long, but it's difficult today with the environment we're in to play that. So Grocery Outlet is a 75-year-old California-based company out of Emeryville in the Bay Area. They are a value-oriented grocery store. They have about 300 stores in the western United States and a few in Pennsylvania. They offer name brand products at a lower price point than traditional grocery stores. So they don't sell seconds, they don't sell closeout stuff. You can go into a Grocery Outlet, and perhaps many of you have been to the Reading store that's about 45 miles east of here on 299, and they have name brand merchandise. So I did notice one letter came in talking about someone thinking that Grocery Outlet just sells junk, and they do not. In every community that we have opened a new store, and we've opened 8 stores in the last 5 years, the local community has overwhelmingly supported the store as they provide an option that the local resident has not had before. They don't duplicate what an existing supermarket has. They don't have any food prep, no delis. They don't have banks. They don't have any of that. That's why their employees of 20 are enough to run the store 7 days a week. Each store is owned and operated by someone who lives in the community. They hire local people, and they are fully engaged in community activities and charities, and we believe would be a great asset to the Weaverville community. As you know, by the many emails that have been sent in to the planning department and the many posts on social media, there was a Facebook page put up about, I don't know, 4 weeks ago or something. We did not put that up. Many local residents are supporting the Grocery Outlet in Weaverville. And as a number of residents have said in their emails, they're tired of driving 45 miles to Reading to shop there. With that said, we look forward to your approval of this conditional use permit, and our team is available to answer any questions that you might have. If you have any questions of me, I can stay here or I can sit back down.
Commissioners, any questions of the applicant?
Yes, I do have a question, Chairman Frazier. Thank you. I'm curious about the pre-selected subcontractors that you have for this project. Are you planning or willing to use any local labor, or is the bid process been awarded? You have a pre-selected group that does these projects for you, or how does
we don't start our working drawings until after we receive approval for the project. So our architect is just standing by for us to give him the word. It takes about 3 months to get the drawings done. It takes about 3 months to get the building permit through the county. So we're 6 to 7 months away from awarding a contractor the project. We are a developer, we're not a general contractor. So we hire general contractors, and the general contractors hire the subs. Yes, to answer your question, if there are local subcontractors, concrete, asphalt, framers, whatever, if they're local, our contractors certainly reach out to them for bids because they're local and hopefully don't have to drive in from Reading or Eureka or somewhere. And we do that all the time, yes. And we also use local material suppliers, like if there's a lumber yard that's close by, which there is, then our contractor always goes to them and see if their pricing can be appropriate for the project. So yes.
Thank you. No more questions, Chairman.
Anyone else? Thank you. All right, any other public commenters?
Hi, good evening. My name is Becky Deal. I wrote those really long letters from McKinley, Conger, Jolly, and Galarno. I just sent one in yesterday. I have extra copies with me if anyone would like one for a reread. I'll be brief because I was not in my letters. I'd like to talk basically about 3 basic subject areas tonight. Again, I am here on behalf of Trinity County taxpayers, local business owners, and citizens. Some of them you've heard from, some of them you have not. Contrary to popular opinion, I'm not here to ask you to deny this project. I'm here to ask you to slow down because we believe that the law has not been fully, completely complied with in this case. So the 3 things I'm going to talk about is 1, the public review period on the mitigated negative declaration initial study, 2, the conditional use permit, and 3, the CEQA document itself. I'm going to avoid the long-winded discussion in my letter and simply say we are going to reiterate that the public review comment period for the mitigated negative declaration was improper under the law. This is nobody's fault. We had an unprecedented situation that happened in mid-March that caused the world to simply shut down for a while. But the result of that is that county offices closed on March 20th. And the laws under CEQA are pretty strict on public noticing. And they say that that notice of availability that lets the public know this document is available must have a public review period that is legally sufficient and must end on a day that the offices are open to the public. This public review period was to end April 2nd. The offices closed on March 20th to the public and have not reopened. All the memorandum put out indicated that there was no foot traffic to be coming in the office. Everything was by mail. And although people may be dipping their toes out a little bit more, that was late March. It was new, this was scary, and nobody was leaving their houses. So we are here saying that that public review period was insufficient because the public was not able to go view this document and submit comments as they wanted to be able to review the environmental studies, to get consultant opinions, expert opinions, to understand and make sure that this is smart planning for the county. So our first request is simply that the commission hold off until the offices can reopen to the public, just renotice that review period so we have a legally sufficient review period in which we can analyze these documents and then we can come back and have this conversation. In the event that the county is not interested in doing that, I'll talk about the CUP itself and the mitigated negative deck. So for the conditional use permit under county law, you have to be able to analyze a general plan. The general plan for Trinity County is not available to view online, and as I stated, the offices are closed. So we simply haven't been able to determine if it is in fact compliant, and that is the #1 mandatory rule when issuing a conditional use permit. We also do believe, based on comments of local business owners, this could be injurious to the local economy, and we're not sure that that's been studied fully. Which takes me to the mitigated neg deck. The urban decay impacts that I wrote about in my letter are completely absent from the environmental study. So we are just asking that that issue be looked into before any approval can happen. Thank you. If anyone has questions. Thank you.
Diana, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
John Brower from Junction City. Good evening, Chair Frazier and Commissioners. Just a few thoughts on this project. I agree that this public comment periods regarding CEQA are very important, so if additional time is needed, certainly should be provided. As far as the CEQA document itself, I'm not so sure the aesthetics portion is really done in a thoughtful way, and the the aesthetics of a giant blocky and big boxy chain store like that plopped down in the middle of our alpine setting is significant, and I think really goes a long way toward making Weaverville less like Weaverville and more like any town USA. That's something that should be very carefully considered in a special place like this. In addition to that, using 3 separate parcels for this single use takes an awful lot of commercial business opportunities away from local businesses. It's 4 different mom and pop businesses that could occupy those locations in favor of one giant. And the economic ramifications of a project like this could also be significant. And I know economics are not considered in CEQA, but it is something that our planning commissioners should definitely consider. And I guess you kind of have some hard decisions to make here about promoting local businesses and Weaverville retaining more of its character or not. And I know the way of the world is toward concentrated capitalism, and that's the way it is. But you do have an opportunity to tap the brakes here and either deny the project or perhaps work conditions into the project where it could be more aesthetically similar to the look and feel of Weaverville and what we all like about it. That's all from me. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in the room wish to comment? Okay, seeing none. Commenters via Zoom.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but I have heard word from at least 2 folks that would like to make comment on Zoom that they're having a hard time hearing and following. So, for what it's worth.
Diana, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you just fine. I can hear all of you just fine.
Okay. Is there anyone on Zoom who would like to comment on agenda item number 2? If you would like to comment, please raise your hand.
This is Alejandro from Grocery Outlet. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, I'm Alejandro Garibaldo. I'm the Director of Sales and Merchandising for the region. I help support local owners in Northern California. I've had the privilege of visiting Weaverville, and we're very excited to be coming in to a community where we would be selecting somebody that would be living within the community as privilege shared. And we do pride ourselves in investing ourselves in the community and giving back. I heard earlier that anywhere between 20 employees are hired, and that all depends on the volume of the store. It could be more. The owners that will be selected will live there and pride themselves in giving back to the community throughout the year. Right now, during this time, we actually run a program called IFH, which is Independent for Hunger, where we raise money for about a month, and we give back to a local agency within that community. Oftentimes being as much as West Reading last year raised as close to $20,000 that they were able to give back to a local organization to help feed the hungry in that community. As shared, we carry brand name items that are extremely high quality, not just your normal, but we carry a lot of natural and organic products as well. We're very excited. We understand that I heard everybody's concerned about the local competition and things like that, but we do want to provide everybody an option of an extreme value grocery in your town. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else on Zoom who would like to comment? Seeing no, I'm not. All right, with that, we will close public comment and bring this back to the commission. Commissioners?
Well, I think the first thing we need to do is hear from county council about the issues that have been raised in a number of the letters we've received, specifically about opposition and timeframes and office closures and, yes. So is county council available?
She is on the line.
I am, and good evening. I'm happy to answer any questions. I was listening to the comment, and I did note that the issues raised, some of the issues that we did look into and investigate prior to the last hearing, specifically related to the closure of the office. I'll have the director correct me if I'm wrong, but we did look into that. And now, while there were issues related to COVID and closed, it was there and available. So again, I'll defer that to Ms. Hunter, but we did look into that after last time and have assurance.
We're having issues, you're cutting out on us.
It froze.
Everybody's stopped. Commissioner Stewart, can you hear us?
Can you see now at Zoom?
Yeah, could you, where should we have her start over? Yeah, addressing the office closure. We started to lose you about then.
Okay, thank you. I'll say that again, and I apologize for cutting out. We did receive that comment prior to the last Planning Commission hearing where this matter was discussed. At that time, I looked into it with the help of the director, and we did make a determination that the office was not closed during the period of time. There were some limitations on ingress and egress based on the COVID situation, but on the days discussed, the office was actually open. A staff member was there, and they would and were available to take any public comment. Thereby, the public comment period was extended the appropriate length. So we did look into that, and we did appreciate that comment to give us the opportunity to look into that. I'm happy to answer any other questions you may have.
Any other questions for county council?
Margaret, this is Mike McHugh. The comment was made about accessibility to the general plan. Apparently, it's not linked off of the page, or I've not found it. And however, if you're saying that the office was open by appointment, or someone could have called in to get access to it, does that meet the requirement for the general plan availability?
So yes, it wasn't just by appointment only. If anyone had knocked on the door or even attempted to open the door, it would have been open for them. What was occurring was there was an attempt to limit unnecessary entry, but if anyone needed to access it, staff was there available and it was open. And Director Hunter can correct me if I'm wrong.
That is correct. We were available by email as well. If somebody wanted to get a hold of us, we could electronically send an email with the general plan. I do want to state that the general plan page is back and running. It's up again. So that's a great piece of news there, and a little step in the right direction. But yes, we were in the office. We were accessible by phone, email, knocks on the door, and so yes, if somebody contacted us, we would have been able to send the electronic PDF versions of each of the elements to that individual.
Or make an appointment to let them know.
Or make an appointment to let them do it in the office as we were there.
Thank you. Thank you, Margaret.
Commissioner Stewart, do you have any questions of county council?
No, well, actually, what about the fact that it was posted online that the office was only open by appointment? And I'm not aware, I did have the check with the door, there was nothing posted on the door. And I do recall there was something posted online, but again, it did say call, and I don't believe anyone called to check on that. So again, theoretically, not theoretically, actually, that there was availability and offering, which is when you look at the law, it doesn't require them to be available at all times, it just requires them to have access, and they did have that. Okay.
Any other questions of county council? Okay. Anything else from the commission? Commissioner Stewart, do you have any other questions, comments, concerns?
Not really, I guess. I do wonder why we have to, outside of the fact that I'm sure that the applicant really wants to forge ahead, but why, given the circumstances, we can't wait. And now that things are starting to open up, give people more of a chance, especially given the fact that if anybody went online to see if the office was open, the first thing they saw was that it wasn't, and that they wouldn't necessarily read on to see that calling was available, and not everybody's willing to make an appointment, but I don't know. It's just been a difficult time, and I just don't know why we have to push ahead and not give people a little bit more of a chance.
Thank you. Would anyone care to make a motion or?
Commissioner Frazier, if I may, I do have a couple of comments I'd like to make based on the conditions of approval for the project. I'd like to address, first of all, directly condition number 3. It states, Levy Road is not a public and maintained road. The applicant shall create to the satisfaction of the Trinity County Council and the Trinity County Transportation Department an organization or an association for the maintenance of Levy Road from Highway 299 to the truck access, or show evidence of the existence of such agreement or organization. My comment to that is the following. Staff, can you expand on this? Will it include all residents or property owners that access Levy Road? This is an undue burden to adjacent property owners that have no gain on this development. Is this a typical way to approach this?
So I don't have a good answer for your question. Ultimately, I was not involved in the discussions as far as these conditions are concerned. So I don't have a good answer for you. You know, that would be Department of Public Works. Transportation. Sorry about that.
Well, in light of that, I'd like to hear the comments or any comments or concerns from the rest of the commission, because I do feel that it would be a burden to adjacent property owners to form an association, have financial responsibilities to the maintenance of the road, when seems clear to me that most of the road usage will be trucks, people accessing the establishment, et cetera, et cetera. So, any comments, commissioners?
I do have a thought on that. The trucks and so on, if those are related to the store, will only go as far as the loading dock, back to the building. levee road in general is in terrible shape. In fact, the levee itself, there may be some questions about. So that's an ongoing issue for the county. But I don't see that this is burdening it too much beyond the north or east, whatever end of that street, going past the grocery outlet store. There are two other conditions in here that address the road where the applicant has agreed, as I understand it, to make improvements at least on the inbound side of that road, and if necessary, go ahead and chip seal or something on the outlet to head back. So it's the improvements, the off-site improvements required of this conditional use permit in conditions 1 and 2 look reasonable to me. I do think number 3 may be a burden, and I'm not interested, I'm not happy about adding that in there, although the applicant representative is willing to do it. But I'm sympathetic to your point, which is puts the burden on the other owners on that street of joining. And I would ask a question of council, since your name is in here, Margaret, in this condition of approval, it says that this agreement would have to be the satisfaction of county council, which I take to mean that the T's and C's of such an agreement would be run by council. Do you have any other interest in this other than just an appropriate agreement form?
That would be my involvement, would be to review that.
Okay.
Correct.
All right, thank you. I could entertain a deletion of that entirely, which I suspect the applicant would not object to. DOT might, but then they could ask the board to put it back in, since they didn't come to the meeting. Or are they on, is anyone from DOT on the Zoom meeting? Anyway, those are my comments.
I don't believe Department of Transportation is here.
All right, thank you.
Any other thoughts on agenda item number 3? I'm not really that familiar with Levee Road myself. I know condition 1 states that it has to be paved to the truck access, and then condition 3 is for maintenance. So I don't know. It almost seems redundant to me, and then adding other landowners in also.
I think the effect of item 3 would be that the grocery outlet folks would be under an agreement to maintain their portion of it. So truck traffic damages what's done under item number 1 or 2. Presumably they want to fix it. This would require them to, whatever the agreement says, in terms of maintenance. But this solution to that possible issue to me is overkill.
I can speak to it if you want to open the public hearing.
Well, I will.
Why don't we go through all the conditions, I might suggest, Mr. Chair, and then there may be a number of them that you want the applicant to
address later. Yeah, so, do you have any other?
Yes, I do, Mr. Chairman, if I may. Condition number 8A states, any mass grading shall be restricted to dry weather periods between April 1st and October 31st. Now, we do have a mass grading ordinance in the county. Shall this be referenced in this document? Mass grading is an aloof term, and there's no reference directly or threshold applied to it. And furthermore, if it was referenced, there's actually no statement in the mass grading ordinance that actually restricts any operations between October 1st and April. But in light of, it seems the applicant has approved or is in agreement of these conditions, I assume that most of your grading will be done in summer months. I mean, I'm sure you have read this and understand those restrictions. So my only comment in light of that would be if we need to reference mass grading or put any threshold on that specifically.
It would seem to me that if they use the definition mass grading in here, it would be the same definition as mass grading in our mass grading ordinance. So that.
That's fine with me, I just wanted to verify that.
Okay. Anything further?
I'm gonna miss you.
Commissioner Stewart, do you have any input on the conditions of approval?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
Chair Frazier,
Yes.
we did want to follow up on the lot line adjustment condition, and point out that's number 17, conditional approval.
There it is, thank you for finding it, right here. And then, if I may, item number 14 is a TBD and our top business. This is a condition under review and maybe revised or removed. This is the sanitation.
Right,
Yes.
Is it revised or removed?
Removed.
So we're deleting number 14.
Yes, we're deleting number 14. That's correct.
Okay, so, commissioners, do you believe we need to reopen public comment on item number 3, or are you, do you think that?
And Chair, this is County Council. I'm happy to address the mass grading question, if that's the pleasure of the commission.
Okay, yeah, we'll do that first, and then.
Perfect. Thank you. The question is, what's the definition of mass grading? The definition would be however, conditions can be more restrictive than what is in our county ordinance, which they are here. As long as they're not less restrictive, they would be legally and be able to uphold. So these are more restrictive, but that is a condition, and so it is the appropriate recommendation. But we would be using our county definition.
Thank you.
Which is consistent with state law as well.
Thank you. All right, now moving back to item number 3, and
If it pleases the chair, I would.
okay,
I'd like to see the applicant any comments on
I would also like to hear the applicant's take on this, so I will reopen the comment period concerning only the condition number 3.
When we first saw this condition, where it said the applicant shall create to the satisfaction of Trinity County Council and the Trinity County Department of Transportation, an organization or association for the maintenance of the levee road to the truck access, like the first 2 conditions. We have no interest in creating an assessment district, having any other person pay any money for that portion of levee road that we are required to improve so that our trucks can get in decently and get around to the back of the truck dock. Most customers will use the main entrance off of 299, which is one entrance, as it is today, much improved by Caltrans standards. That will be the main entrance because if someone tried to go down Levee Road and get to the store, they've got to go all the way around the back of the store and work their way out to the front. They might do it once, and then they're not going to do it again. So we have no interest in an association, but we read it so, that we would come to an agreement with Trinity County Council and the DOT at a later date that was satisfactory, but we can commit to you that we are not going to be doing an assessment district or having other neighbors pay anything for our improvements for the project.
So can that condition be changed to say that Grocery Outlet will maintain the stretch that they improve? And I mean, that would remove any risk to the adjacent property, I think, right?
People that are only going to create a district of themselves.
Well, they don't want to create an organization at all. They just want to maintain the road.
And I'll tell you from County Council's perspective, if Grocery Outlet is willing to review of it.
Could you try that again, Margaret? That faded out.
I apologize. My review of it, or my comment to that is that if Grocery Outlet is willing to commit to funding that as part of a condition, that would satisfy my county council review, and I would have no concern regarding that. If that's not where we're going forward today, we will meet with them and establish and put in writing a proposal on decision how you want to proceed. Either way is acceptable to me.
Okay. I would recommend we change the wording slightly on that condition and just make it the applicant shall maintain levy road from Highway 299 to the truck access to the satisfaction of Trinity County Department of Transportation. And that would take everything, all the neighbors out of it. That would be my recommendation. Would the applicant agree to that change?
Yeah, I was just bringing what Dan said. Didn't get it all. I got the applicant shall maintain levy road from Highway 299 to
Truck access
to the satisfaction
of the Trinity County Department of Transportation.
I have no legal concerns with that.
Commissioner Stewart, are you still with us? Can you still hear us?
Yep, I'm still with you.
All right. Anything else from commissioners?
Well, we've seen quite a few positive comments in support of the project, and we've seen a number of comments in opposition, primarily from local businesses who are concerned about economic impacts, which are phrased in the concern of economic decay, which is not addressed in the secret documents, according to their comments. So I guess we at least need to discuss that, I think, as a commission, about whether there are issues here. Certainly, the situation that we've been in has, at least in my mind, clearly restricted public comment, public involvement in this process. As you recall, when Dollar General tried to go to Hayfork, we had a pretty different process over there. And my opinion is that if we didn't have the current restrictions, that we would not necessarily see a process exactly like that, but I'm sure we would have far more public involvement and public comments. And as Commissioner Stewart noted, it seems really difficult to make a decision to, do we have to move forward? You know, we're getting letters today, yesterday, some in support, some in opposition, and I have to weigh that a little bit. It doesn't really seem to me that I mean, perhaps we have followed the letter of the law, but I would tend to agree that if you saw on a website something in letters that says the office is closed to the public, you are not likely to go any further and figure out that, oh, you could do these other things to have access. That concerns me a lot. I mean, this is a significant decision for Weaverville, for the county, and I'm concerned about the amount of public participation we've been able to have in the situation. So I'd like to hear other people's thoughts on that topic.
There's two sides to that, but there's also the applicant side who has been at this for, I don't know, past 18, 20 months, trying to get this through, and football goes on, it goes on, and meetings canceled and all that. So when we say there's no urgency to make a decision, there is in their mind. Right? They would like to move on with their project and go to the next stage. So that does balance somewhat. That does introduce some urgency to move the project forward.
I definitely agree that this lack of public input has kind of been an issue at our last several meetings. I would be more inclined to say, yeah, let's wait. If we knew that we could have this room full in 1 week, if our next regularly scheduled meeting, we were open to the public, everybody could come. My concern is the more we hear, it's like it could be months down the road before we can actually have a meeting. So at some point, as terrible as it is to not know if you're getting all the public comment, we have to move on with the business of the county. We can't stop everything completely. Things still need to get done. It is a major issue to the people who are waiting to have their items heard. And so I do think we need to try to move forward, taking into account that we might not be hearing everything from the public that we normally would.
If I may, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Well, that is true for smaller projects. Something like a grocery outlet it doesn't just affect a neighborhood. It doesn't just affect a block. It affects the entire town. Something this large, I think public comment should have even more weight. And so I really have serious concerns about moving forward with it for that reason. For other things where the effect is not going to be necessarily quite so hard on the community, then I agree. But I have very, very grave concerns about going on without more public comment on this.
Thank you. Commissioner Moore, any thoughts?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do see both points very clearly. It has been very frustrating to not be able to have the public here present to truly voice their opinion, their sentiments. But at the same time, I do understand that business needs to move forward. The applicant has been waiting for a long time. And furthermore, we do have a tool that is present right now that we're using, the Zoom meeting. And I'm surprised to see how many people have not stepped up in public comment to oppose this project. We have received some letters, but there are processes in place. And I do agree with Commissioner Frazier. I believe the item does need to move forward because we don't know when we will actually have the opportunity to have a good old meeting with everyone's input. So that's it. Thank you.
Right. Would anyone care to make a motion on this item?
make a motion, Mr. Chair. Sure, since there's anything else. Staff report with the resolutions in the memo. I move that the commission adopts the CEQA determination of the mitigated negative declaration and the mitigated monitoring and reporting program, and adopts the recommended findings in resolution 2020-05 as it appears in the April 22nd version of said resolution, and approve the conditional use permits of 1919 based upon findings that it is compliant with the CEQA and the MND and the MMRP are adequate for the environmental impacts, and the conditions as amended in the strikeout version with item 3 as modified by the verbiage.
Yes.
I'll read into it in a moment if I need to, and with item 14 stricken. And
Read my writing.
if I can read your writing, the item 3 conditional approval will read as follows. The applicant shall maintain Levy Road from Highway 299 to the truck access to the satisfaction of the Trinity County Council, to the satisfaction of the Trinity County Department of Transportation.
And I do think county council is going to go over that too.
The legal, she said, yes, we met the legal requirements with what I said.
That's right, just DOT.
Do you have
I think that, I'm satisfied.
So we have a motion.
Did you have one? Do you need me to
Yeah, I'll read Ken's notes. I don't know.
Okay, so we have a motion. Would anyone care to second?
I will second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion before we do a roll call vote? Any subsequent motions? All right. We get a roll call vote on the motion.
Okay. Commissioner McHugh, how do you vote? Commissioner Matthews, how do you vote?
No.
Commissioner Stewart, how do you vote?
No.
Commissioner Horde, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Frazier, how do you vote?
Aye. Yep, that was everyone. All right. Motion carried 3-2. Moving on, is anybody in need of a recess before we go on to the next? All right, we will take a 5-minute recess before we go on to agenda item number 3. Thank you.
It's been a while.
So you know I'm leaving the streaming running while they're break, so some of them will come back in and out. So it's running still, so.
Thank you, sir.
And it does pick up every. You know, Dollar General is right across the street, right?
Good, thanks.
All right, looks like we're back. All right, we will reconvene the June 4th planning commission meeting. Moving on to agenda item number 3. Before we get started, Commissioner Stewart, are you still with us?
She's on break.
Maybe give it another minute and see if we can sure before we hadn't signed with Commissioner Stewart yet. Do we have Commissioner Stewart on the line yet?
Yes, I am.
Okay, thank you. All right, we are moving on to agenda item number 3, appeal of the director's decision P20-12. Staff?
Commissioner, if I may, or Chairman, if I may, I will recuse myself from this agenda item.
All right, staff.
Okay, I'm Kim Hunter, I'm the Director of Building and Planning. I'll be presenting tonight. This is an appeal of the Planning Director's decision to deny a commercial cannabis license. The license number is 2019-618. The location of the site is 3120 Bear Creek Road in Weaverville area. EPN 010-690-02-00. This was a license that was applied for. It was being processed. The commercial cannabis license had not been issued. There was a code enforcement action in February, about mid-February actually. And during that code enforcement action at the site of that was pending, application was pending, the license again was not issued. There was cultivation of over 200 cannabis plants without the issued license. Based upon that citation being issued and the cultivation occurring without the issuance of a Trinity County commercial cannabis license, they denied the application. The appellant is, is Dina Obrevenik. She is here this evening along with her representative, Mitch Ivanov. And they're here to speak on this matter along with, there were several letters received both in support of the appellant and also to uphold the decision of denial. Those were previously handed out in memos and included in the memo sent out for this meeting as well, along with some others that were sent originally in April 23rd for the April 23rd meeting. So with that, I think that covers it. The approximate acreage of the site, 4.21 acres, zoning is unclassified. The zoning district overlay is a critical water resource overlay, and general plan is rural residential. And staff recommendation is to deny the appeal. I'd like to answer any questions if you have any.
Commissioners, any questions of staff? I guess first off we will come to the, I guess not an applicant this time, but appellant. Or
Good evening. My name is Dina Brenovic. I'm the tenant on 3120 Bear Creek Road, an applicant for a cannabis license 618. I came to this property in the beginning of 2019, and since then I have been working hard to get all the requirements done in order to obtain the license and start my small legal business. Throughout the year, all the necessary inspections were done, including water board, fish and game biological study, and more, and all the required fees were paid. I applied for the smallest cannabis license. It's 500 square feet indoor cottage, thinking it will not bother anyone since there is no smell, no possible environmental contamination, and very small water consumption. I invested so much effort, a whole year of my life, my savings and more. First time when I walked in a building of the planning department in Beaverville and asked about this property and the licensing process, I have been told this is a place where I am allowed to grow, and no one said that the neighborhood has such a strong negative attitude towards cannabis industry. I see in the staff report most of the neighbors are using my landlord as the main reason to not accept my license. And I believe in this country that nobody should be held accountable for someone else's actions. Since day one, I tried to be a good neighbor, even though most of the times I felt unwelcomed, probably because I'm not born and raised here, or the way how I make a living, with the exception of few people that were really wonderful to me. Due to the pregnancy, I subleased the property I left to give birth and take care of my son until he grows a little bit. This happened in September 2019, and my plan initial was to come back when the license is issued. Plans were on the property without my consent, my knowledge, and I feel it would be unfair not to get this license after all the hard work I put on it. I'm a single mother with now 6 months old baby, and when we depend on this license, and I didn't expect this turn of event. I'm truly hoping you will reconsider this denial, recognize that I'm innocent, and help me to obtain this, my son and me to obtain this license. This is everything for me. Thank you so much for listening. I appreciate it.
All right. I guess you want to. Can't remember the appellant's representative's name right at this moment. I'm sorry. So, Mitch, I have not. Would you like to speak?
Yes, of course. Good evening, commissioners. My name is Mitch. I'm a consultant from Lewiston. Dina hired me sometime in January in 2019 to help her with her application. Dina has complied with all state and local regulations for the issuance of her license, and her license was published this January. In beginning of February, a neighbor challenged the issuance of her license, stating unsubstantiated claims such as water issues, soil pollution, and increased traffic. A week after challenging the issuance of her license was filed. Sheriff's office served a search warrant on the property she was leasing from Leon Draper. The deputies found individual by the name of Gabriel on the property. Dina has subleased the property to him sometime in fall 2019, since she was pregnant and baby was coming. Dina subleased the property to Gabriel, who was supposed to stay on the property and take care of it until Dina received her license from the county. Subsequently, it became apparent that Gabriel, without Dina's consent and knowledge, may have had more than 6 plants on Dina's property. As a result of the raid by the sheriff's office, planning department denied the issuance of Dina license without considering that she did not have knowledge about what had occurred on the property. Also, for the letter of denial, it appears that the planning department has denied the license because Dina's landlord may have been involved in unlawful cultivation on another parcel. Further, Dina is applying for the smallest license in Trinity County. Indoor operations as this require no more than 100 gallons per day of water and no more than one person to run. This is further evidence that the Bear Creek watershed will not be affected and no extra traffic will be created. Most properties on Bear Creek Road divert surface water from the creeks in the neighborhood, which directly affects fish and wildlife. Dina's project will be fully supplied from a groundwater well. Indoor operations as this do not contaminate soil, produce odor or noise. Her project is fully enclosed, carbon filters installed, and excess water recycled to avoid any adverse effects on the neighborhood and environment. Dina's property is at the end of 3-mile-long dirt road, and the closest neighbor is at least 1,500 feet away. None of the concerned neighbors will even feel that this small project exists. Due to Dina's obvious innocence, demonstrated efforts to be compliant with the state and county laws, and the minimal size of her project, we kindly request the Commission to reverse the denial of her license and give her a chance. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, with that, we will open this item up to comment from the general public. We'll start with people here. Yeah, go ahead and get in the room.
My name is Sally Barrow. I live on Bear Creek Road. Thanks for letting me speak to you face to face, intimidated by the Zoom thing. I want to apologize in advance for using the first names of the applicant and her partner. I'm embarrassed to say that I can't pronounce their last names. Leon Draper has purchased 3 properties neighboring my home on Bear Creek Road in the last few years. He has had a history of illegal growing here and was cited civilly last summer. In 2019, applications for commercial cannabis permits were filed under his tenants' names for 2 of these properties. I filed an appeal against both of those applications on February 5th. If you can see, this is my place. These are the 3 Draper places. These are the 2 of the applications. And this is the one that we're talking about tonight, the small one. On February 12th, after my appeal was filed, halting the issuance of the permits and preventing any legal commercial cannabis cultivation, a criminal search warrant was served on Leon Draper's property next door to me, the one without any application. Enough evidence was found there to obtain additional search warrants for the other Draper properties. I checked with the officer that was there this morning to verify the number of plants. As a result of the search, about 8,000 plants were found on the 3 properties. 400 were found on the property that you're citing, the appeal that you're considering tonight, and $7,000 was seized there. Dina has stated that she's a single mother who had no knowledge of the illegal activity occurring on her property. Obviously, even if this were true, ignorance of the law is no excuse. She claims her rogue tenant was growing without her knowledge or consent. The man who was present on the property the day of the raid was named by the Trinity Journal in the notice of seizure of the $7,000 as Gabriel. I have a letter that Gabriel wrote to me in November in which he states that his wife Dina and future son were going to be my neighbors. In a conversation with me, he continually referred to Dina as his wife. The other argument that Dina and her supporters make is that her year of sacrifice and investment is a reason to consider overlooking the illegal activity and grant her appeal. None of Dina's supporters live on Bear Creek Road. Your decision will not affect their life whatsoever. I would ask you to consider the huge lifetime of investment and sacrifice required by my family and my neighbors, the majority of whom have signed a petition to include our neighborhood in an opt-out area, whose lives will be directly influenced by your decision. If this criminal disregard for your commercial cannabis cultivation ordinance is not a valid reason to deny this permit, what exactly is a valid reason to deny a permit? I ask you to reject this appeal and to agree with the director's decision to deny.
Thank you. Anyone else?
My name's Chris. I live on Bear Creek Road. I believe Sally and I are 2 of many people who are opposed to this. Many people are self-quarantining and they don't leave their homes but for emergencies. Had I purchased a home near a racetrack, shooting range, sports arena, or airport, knowing that the noise from these elements, I would have no recourse later on to raise a stink about it and try to get those things closed down. Had I known that this cannabis project was going to be starting up on these last 3 parcels at the end of Bear Creek Road, I wouldn't have purchased the house up there. I have quite a bit of money invested, as Dina has in her project. I too have, and my neighbors have a lot of money invested in their project. And it's considerable. It took 40 years of savings and investing in order to get to that point. And so my investment is also in jeopardy. If I were to try and sell the house with legal grows at the end of the road, when it came time to disclose for the real estate paperwork, I'd have to disclose that there's a cannabis operation, because it asks for commercial operations in the neighborhood, And if I'm aware of them, I'd have to say, yes, I am. And unless you're in the cannabis industry, you don't want to live. You're not volunteering, you're not knowingly going to purchase a house in that area. I think that, I don't know, Dina, I don't know Dina. I've never met her before, never seen her before tonight. And I'm sure she's a very hardworking, industrious person. And I think she's probably a good person for trying to go the legal route. However, as soon as, and I hate to bring Leon into it because it's not his fight, but as soon as he brought cannabis into the neighborhood, things started happening. Just the other night, on parcel 3, someone shot into the house. And Leon wrote a neighbor a letter accusing them of doing it. Now, the neighbor, of course, didn't do it, but the fact that that type of activity is occurring in the neighborhood now, and houses aren't really numbered all that well, and if somebody shoots into the wrong house, that could be a problem. I ask that you deny the appeal, and I ask that you deny the permit. And also, Sally touched on it briefly, we have an opt-out application in that we've been trying to get for a considerable amount of time. And we've been put off, and we were told to wait until the turn of the new year, and we're halfway through the new year, and we're still waiting for it. And if we have the opt-out, we wouldn't be here tonight.
Anyone else?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Steven and I live in Wilson. I have been doing business in Trinity County for several years already. I just would like to the commission tonight to consider my support to Dina Branovic. She's a great woman and she will deserve to get her license back. It would be unjust for the commission to deny her license without considering all the facts. Please support small business in Trinity County and give Dina a chance. Thank you for considering my opinion on this matter. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, board. How's it going? So, my name is Ilya Makarov, and I'm a resident of Trinity County and also a commercial cannabis license holder. I have known Dina for quite some time, and I knew that she was in the process of obtaining Trinity County license permit. Prior to this meeting, I looked over the county's planning commission report and comments regarding the appeal from Ms. Sally Borrow and actually Mr. Brian Borrow. It became obvious to me that Mrs. Sally Borrow and Mr. Brian Borrow fabricate facts. Mr. and Mrs. Borrow is stating that she had a long history with Mr. Leon Draper, but he has nothing to do with Dina's application and all the processes she went through to become legal. He has nothing to do with the license, and his name is nowhere to be found. His name is only found on the application permission sheet, which is required if you're renting the property. She also stated that $7,000 were seized. I don't want to sound ignorant, but $7,000 in Trinity County, it's a very, very small amount of money. Unlike Mrs. Borrow, I'm convinced that the applicant have proven their want to do everything by the rules, and they did. Because I have county license, I know how hard and labor-intensive the process is. Dina, the applicant, went through every possible agency and had all the inspections possible, including Fish and Game, Water Board, Biological and Cultural Study for the 500 square foot operation, which is indoor, without grading, without anything. And also she did water calculations. It's not an easy nor cheap process. So back to the $7,000, the cost, the average cost for the cultural and biological study, because you cannot do it by yourself. It's the licensed professional has to do it. It's between $3,500 and $7,000. Sally and Brian Borrow went as far as to hire a lawyer, Mr. James Underwood, to fight a micro 500 feet indoor cultivation. Mr. Underwood states that CEQA exemption does not apply because the applicant didn't supply documents which shows pre-existing legal or illegal commercial cultivation operation. But his client, Ms. Sally Borrow, states that there was a previous cultivation on the property. Mr. Underwood, the lawyer for Ms. Sally, also states in the paragraph 2 on page 4 that there was a previous cultivation. So there's some kind of contradiction of what he's saying. Mr. Underwood also states in his letter that Mr. and Mrs. Borrow have concerns about water, road use, and neighborhood safety. I know a lot of cultivators. I'm a cultivator myself. There is nothing worse to have a fight with a neighbor, and we're always trying to be as nice as possible to help as much as possible. I'm sorry, it's one sentence and I'm finishing.
Thank you. We have your letter.
Okay, thank you guys. And I addressed it to the Board of Supervisors. I made a mistake. It's a planning commission.
That's fine.
Thank you guys.
Thank you.
Joe Brewer from Junction City. And one of the issues in this staff report is the letter from the attorney that seems to be challenging on CEQA grounds that this project could have significant environmental impact on the watershed. And I just want to make it very clear that the water board participation that you have to get through before you can ever apply for a county license mitigates that, and that indoor operations cannot have any discharge. So if this operation is water board compliant, it sounds like it is, it would have to be to get an application considered by our planning department, that there is no potential for environmental impact related to runoff or discharge from this operation. All indoor water board permits are completely self-contained and have to have a tank that effluent is pumped to and carried off-site to be properly disposed of. They cannot discharge. And that most modern indoors have dehumidification and air conditioning equipment that condenses the water vapor back out of the air after the plants have transrespired it into the room. And so that gets recollected and used again and again and again. They're very efficient water-wise and can be self-contained regarding odor too. So those impacts are greatly overstated, and I don't think this project can be really challenged on those CEQA matters. As far as prior cultivation or not, it's another really strange spot the county's in here, where we're trying to transition pre-existing operations into licensure, yet now they're being prevented from obtaining their license because of cultivation. So that's really kind of a double-edged sword and a catch-22 in many ways, and it's a tough one for staff to wrestle with. And I know this will continue to come up time and again before the commission. So I don't think that necessarily having plants on site prior to licensure should prevent somebody from being licensed. I mean, the entire goal of this program is to get pre-existing folk transitioned into licensing. So something to be mindful of as you're making this decision. And, as far as the neighborhood goes, you've received many comments on both sides, and thank you for your time, Commissioners.
Thank you. Anyone else in here? Anyone with us on Zoom that would like to comment on this agenda item?
We have Veronica Kelly Albies.
Ms. Albies, go ahead.
Good evening. This is Veronica Kelly Albies from Douglas City. As I sit and I listen, and I know how hard it is to be a new mom, And I commend Ms. Dina for everything that she has had to deal with. It upends your world. But not knowing about 400 plants when you have an open license request lends to the conclusion that more issues could possibly occur on the same plane of issues. And listening tonight and hearing things that the gentleman that was there and had 400 plants has an intimate relationship with her, that would be concerning. And if illegal grow was found, should a new review of the property occur? Because that grow was found after all of her environmental issues, paperwork were gone through, there might be new things that need to be taken a look at. And so I applaud someone taking on the new business, taking on, well, they have so much going on, but ignorance of the law is difficult. And to swallow, especially knowing that if there was a third party, like, okay, maybe they didn't know, but if there was some sort of relationship or partnership that would lend to the possibility of things continuing to have an issue there, sometimes everything sort of feels a little bit like three-card Monty. What card is it under? And when you have several people involved in an endeavor such as this, it just sort of, you just start looking for the three-card Monty. So, I would recommend the appeal be upheld. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have anyone else on Zoom? Okay, no other commenters.
Can I add something? Is it possible, 15 seconds?
No, I'm going to close public comment. We'll bring it back to the commission.
Commissioner Frazier, I just saw a request pop up there, another comment.
No, it was on the old chat.
Okay, Commissioner Stewart, are you with us still?
Yes, I am.
Okay. We'll bring this back to the commission. Commissioners, any thoughts, comments, motions?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Ms. Dubrovnik is exactly the kind of grower that we want. In that it's small, it's a family, it's indoors, it's all the good things, all the mom and pop kinds of things that at the beginning of this we hoped for and that I personally really wanted to see happen. But hearing that that the person who had the illegal grow was possibly her husband, possibly the father of her child is very concerning. That's really all I have to say. I think it would be wonderful, but I have concerns.
Thank you.
I think one of the things we have to grapple with is the opt-out issue. The group in Rush Creek Estates and Bear Creek Road who wants to do an opt-out has been coming to us for, I don't know how long, a long time. And we have certainly, I believe, at least, we've responded positively that we would, if a significant percentage of the residents or property owners in an area were going to petition us, that we would be supportive of an opt-out. For a variety of reasons, I think that hasn't happened. They've been told to wait and wait and wait. I think that's unfortunate. the specifics of this application, I agree with the commenter who said that the goal is clearly to transition to legal grows, and this is a very small application. But there are definitely concerns about the history of what is going on there from my perspective.
Share the concerns.
That's my biggest concern is having an application for a 500 square foot indoor grow and 400 plants. There's, before the license.
Let me ask you to speak up.
Speak
I can
up.
hardly hear you.
All right, I will
don't
try
have
to
a
speak
mic.
into my microphone. My concern is that with an application for a 500 foot indoor grow, and then before the license is issued, to have enforcement on the property where those 400 plants are eradicated, it seems it's not our area to determine whether she knew it was happening on the property. To me, she's a responsible party, and that would be a violation of the license she was applying for. So that's my biggest concern, is that the enforcement during the application process seems like a legitimate reason for denial.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, if I can address. I think the public was misled with the
Public
statement.
comment period is closer.
Sorry.
Mr. Chairman, if I may,
Yes.
addressing the issue of transitioning illegal grows to legal grows, you touched on this yourself just now, the fact that that illegal grow occurred after the licensing process had begun, really is another thing that concerns me about this. If it had been, an illegal grow beforehand and they truly were transitioning into legal, then that would be one thing. But there are, if you want to be legal, you have to make sure that you're doing things right from the time you start the licensing process until you receive your license. And we've talked about this before and dealt with it before. Thank you.
Would anyone care to make a motion on this item?
I move that we uphold the director's decision and deny the appeal, finding no compelling reason to overturn the decision.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. We will have a roll call vote.
Okay. Commissioner McHugh, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Matthews, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Stewart, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Ford recused himself. Chair Frazier, how do you vote?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. Motion passes. And with that, we will close agenda item number 3 and move on, item number 3 and move on to item number 4. An annual initial variance, CCB 19-63.
Would you just wait a moment while we transition audiences?
Okay, yes, we can do that. Okay, looks like we've transitioned our audience. Agenda item number 4, staff.
This item was continued from the April 23rd meeting at the request of the applicant's consultant, Laura. This variance request is for a property located at 27 Log Cabin Lane in Douglas City. A staff report and 3 subsequent memos were written for this item. The first memo was to recommend continuance of this item by the consultant. The second memo contained a letter from the applicant's consultant in response to the neighbor's comment letter. And the third memo contained a comment letter from a neighbor that is located farther than 350 feet from the cultivation site that was not in support of this variance request, as well as an updated 350-foot comment status map. Staff is recommending denial of this variance request because staff was unable to justify required guiding principle number 3, the service not permitted. This principle states that a variance must not be injurious to the public welfare nor to adjacent properties. I would like to clarify that guiding principle number 3 does not define what exactly injurious should look like. There is no spectrum of analysis or threshold. This notion is objective and deference would be given to the neighbor themselves. It is not appropriate for staff to determine whether or not a neighbor's comment is valid or not. It is staff's task to bring pertinent information to the Planning Commission that would aid them in their decision, including all public comment. Staff has received 2 public comments regarding this variance request, both not in support of the variance. Because staff received a letter not in support of this variance request from the neighbor located on APN 025-140-3300, which is the only residence within 350 feet of the cultivation site, staff is unable to justify principle number 3 of the 5 guiding principles. The applicant, consultant, and I believe their translator might be on Zoom.
Here.
Is the translator?
Chia.
Okay, got it. Are here tonight to speak on the matter and answer any questions that you may have. Okay.
Thank you. Any questions of staff? Right. We will start out by hearing from the applicant's consultant or whoever wishes to speak on this.
The applicant's going to start, and
Applicant,
we'll
okay.
go after her.
Good evening, Chia from Douglas City, and this is my name is So Zong. And I said I'll be giving out her statement to you guys due to language barrier. So she has a statement here. Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Shor Sham, and I am the applicant applying for variance at 27 Log Cabin Lane in Douglas City, APN 2514032. I would like to begin in mentioning that I had started this process almost 2 years ago when my son purchased this property from his uncle. Before then, this property has had a history of illegal cultivation. When my son purchased the property, there were 5 other properties, 2 of which are adjoined to this property, and 3 others in the surrounding area who also cultivate cannabis illegally. Of these 5, 3 properties have about 200 plus boxes established, and the other 2 have around 30. I could have operated illegally, but I decided this was not for me. It was against my ethics and morals, and hence the process to become legal began. Also, that's when threats and intimidation started to roll in. On a regular month basis, I would say we would receive about 2 to 3 threats and intimidation to stop what I was doing, since I attracted attention of local and state authorities to my area. These threats and intimidation came from the same individual peoples who cultivate illegally on these 5 properties. They didn't like how their illegal gardens have a chance of being exposed during regular site visits. From these threats and intimidations, other people would have had decided to stop the process as a whole or even to resell the property. However, not me. It fueled my commitment even more into getting my commercial cannabis license. Also, going through the Vietnam War with bombs exploding from sun up to sundown to being shot at by Viet Congs, and me seeing bodies lying everywhere along the road to Thailand has made this woman that stands before you strong. A few threats and intimidations are not going to make me stop, and hence brought me to the doors of Flora. Lisa, Anna, Lene, Danae, and the staff at Flora are outstanding. They understood what little knowledge I had of the process and made it easier to understand with even this language barrier. With Flora, I have my state water board, my biological and cultural assessment, Fish and Wildlife Lake and Stream Alteration Agreement, and my state CPFA license. I know that I am required to have a director's use permit as a requirement for the county license, but this was as discussed last year during June of 2019 with my case manager, Ben Morales, who is my Trinity County's cannabis site inspector. He stated that since the mobile home was being delivered in August of 2019, for me not to go through the process, since the process would take more than 3 months to obtain. Hence, I would be living in my mobile home before the permit would be heard. However, due to scheduling complications on the contractor's side, the mobile home is scheduled to be installed this August. The pad is scheduled to be paved in mid-July. I know there is an opposing neighbor for this variance and another in support of opposing in terms of easement. However, his comments should be considered irrelevant since he is one of the illegal cultivators with pictures shown by Flora's memo. I know tonight everyone around my area, including the 5 owners of the illegal cultivation sites, are listening to this variance, hoping that you don't grant it. But tonight, I stand before you and ask that you grant me my variance. Make a statement to everyone around me and out there that the only way to cultivate is to do it legally. Thank you.
It's a hard one to follow. Good evening, Commissioners. On our right with Flora. Excuse me, that I read it before I came in here and I'm still, my heart's racing. I think Sora touched on a lot there. What I'm going to touch on is the response letter that we submitted to opposition. Pretty straightforward, lots of pictures and lots of citing of not only CEQA, but some valid permits that have already been issued. So I'm just going to start with, on that first page, the letter from Mr. Hennis, one of the first opposition letters. So one of the first points made let's just start with pretty flagrant, blatantly opinionated letter, was around the use of the water source and the potential of it being an illegal water source. As you can see in attachment A of this letter, this is actually a permitted groundwater well. Not only is the notice of final permit in here, but the well completion report, shows that the minimum depth and gallons per minute requirements have indeed been met. According to the Trinity County Cultivation Ordinance, there's nothing else we have to do to prove a valid water source. Trinity County Environmental Health also has the neighbor's well permit, if indeed valid, so red flags would have been pulled while SOAR drilled hers if the setback was indeed an issue. So because of the valid permitting of the water source, I don't believe that that even should be a consideration in this variance. The second point made in his argument was about deeded access to the easement. In attachment B is a title report from the Trinity County Recorder's Office, which clearly states that there is actually just one easement. In 1993, this was recorded. The one easement, as shown in figures 1 and 2, are just to the neighbor's house. There is a garden behind Mr. Hennis's house that is not part of this legal easement and is thus not able to be legally accessed. The only easement granted is that direct driveway to Mr. Hennis's home. Every other part of Ms. Zhang's property is hers and her right to have and do what legally she wants to do on it. Figure 3 and 4 shows that easement access that's not actually granted to Mr. Hennis's illegal cultivation behind him. There was also a mention in his letter about the potential of fencing off an area that may block access. This was also the second opposition's letter touched on this. In figure 5, you can see that there's actually an illegal dumping ground happening from other neighbors in the area. That is actually on this applicant's property. And if you look at the maps, her property does sort of an L shape, and this dumping ground is in that L shape. So it looks like it could, you know, if someone didn't look at the property boundaries, it looks like it could be somebody else's property, and there is a road to go to a neighbor's house. But this is all Ms. Zhang's property and not part of that legal deeded easement. The potential of fencing off this area is due to this illegal dumping that's not by her. And because of all of her legal licenses held, she doesn't want to face any issues because of others' actions around her. So the fencing was proposed to eliminate others' access to that on her property. Another last point was claims of illegal activity on APN 0251411. This is actually the parcel behind Ms. Zhang and is not owned by her. Pretty simple search that we did showed that there is a different owner of that parcel. So that comment should just be null and void right there. Everything that you see in this report took Flora just a couple days to find. I believe if staff did their research, they would have found this too, and a recommendation of denial would not have been made because all these letters that came in are of opinion and not fact-based. The facts you can see right here in this report. Because if this variance is not granted, Ms. Zhang would have to do some development to move her garden. The extra, it's 210 feet away from the house right now, so that extra measurement to get 350 feet would cause a 3-acre conversion permit and increase environmental impact. Right now, Ms. Zhang's site actually fits a categorical exemption class 1 facility, and we want to try to keep it that way. Not only for the ease of licensing on everybody's ends, but for her to be able to stay in that exemption status. Additionally, as she touched on, every single license that she needs to cultivate legally has already been issued except this one. And the only reason we haven't been able to come here today is just due to timing of scheduling this hearing. She touched base real quick on the RV issue. In your staff report, it shows an unpermitted RV. We have witnesses to that site visit. Both Jeff Dickey and Ben Marias can also speak to that. Because of that mobile home was supposed to be coming in that end of that summer, but due to the contractor's issues, it's coming this summer. If it would have been pointed out that a DUP would have then been needed in the meantime, we would have happily done it, but nothing was called for because the county told us we didn't need it. So just going back to the point of this variance, the 350-foot setback, and injurious, of course, yes, that is a hard definition a hard word to define. But according to all the legal records, as you can see here, there should be nothing injurious to Mr. Hennis at all. If anything, Ms. Zhang has faced a lot of hardships by trying to get her garden legal in an area where it's not a popular place to be for a legal garden. I'm happy to answer any questions also if you guys have any on this report since I wrote it.
Sure. I don't understand. Thank you for your report. The question I have is regarding the part that's going to get fenced off. On the L-shaped lot, I'm not quite sure what is getting fenced off.
Yeah, so when you're looking at the parcel, towards the bottom of that L, I guess, that far right-hand side, this is where people have been dumping. As you can see, the old washer and dryers. This is still on her property, and it is around a driveway, but it's not a driveway that's in the legal easement. It's all still part of her property. So she's worried that if people come out for visits for their regular site inspections, she would get in trouble for this illegal dumping when it's not her doing it. So the purpose of fencing it off would be to deter people from dumping their trash there on her property.
And the fence doesn't encroach on the easement?
Nope, it does not.
Any other questions for the consultant? Thank you.
Thank you again.
Okay, I lost my agenda. All right, we will open public comment on agenda item number 4. there anyone else in here who would like to speak on this item?
I'm Phil Pennis of the letter that you hear about. My main objection is the use of the water. This is not a real high water bearing area, and my well and spring used to produce 5,000 or 6,000 gallons a day. Now I'm lucky if I get 2,000 gallons a day, and that's mainly my objection. I use medical marijuana myself. I have a legal license, medical marijuana license. And it's not that I object to marijuana. I just object to not following the rules, not doing things properly. The well's drilled right next to the septic tank, which is supposed to be illegal. It's supposed to be 100 feet from any part of the septic system. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
John Brower from Junction City, and again, I think this applicant is exactly who the county would hope to transition into licensure. If perhaps the matter could be continued so the applicant and the neighbor could work out some sort of arrangement to be palatable to both. The applicant has an awful lot invested in this. She really has stuck her neck out within the illegal growing community or yet to be licensed growing community to make these moves. And they are good moves to make. I would encourage continuing this item and maybe if the applicant and the neighbor both agreed to try to come to some accommodation, it seems like might be prudent. We're never going to stop the unlicensed growing in that neighborhood. This is an opportunity to transition to something more environmentally responsible and hopefully more acceptable to the rest of the neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I speak? My name is Kenneth Riddle, and I live on the same road as these people. I just want to speak to the fact there's not any illegal cannabis gardens. You can come check anybody's yard you want. He's in complete compliance. Everybody's in complete compliance. I don't know anybody that had any plants last year other than them and the people below them. The main issue that a lot of us have is that the man that lives on that property came down the L-shaped drive. The L-shaped part of that crosses two driveways that people have been using for a long time. People that are living there trying to be neighborly, friendly to each other. The neighbor below him, he moved in, he came to meet Skip. And her partner came down the hill, told them both that he was going to close their driveways. He was fencing it off, he was putting in greenhouses, they all had to move. Just being a general bully, trying to cause trouble for no reason. He was basically just trying to be a bully. And it just seemed like it was I don't know, it just didn't seem right to me. Had Skip all worked up, and Skip's been there for a long time, so, and it just, I don't know how you think you can come in and lie to your neighbors, tell them that you went to the planning department, and that you have a deeded right to that property, and you can block off their driveway, and tell them that they can't have a driveway anymore, and that they just have to do something else. That just doesn't seem right. That seems like the problem with the marijuana grows in this county that people have been trying to avoid, is the bullying and the neighbor problems and all that. And when your first move is just to come right at somebody and tell them, you gotta park your car somewhere else. I'm putting in my greenhouse right here because I bought a piece of land that's like this, and the only two flat pieces on it are your driveways, and I want them. That seems to be the issue to me, other than, I don't know. But I don't actually have any legal, I'm far enough away that I don't have anything to do with it, but that was my opinion on it. I just wanted to say something about the illegal grows, because there's no illegal grows there. I mean, everybody shut it down. It's been that way for quite a while. You can Google it, whatever you want. But that's my opinion.
Thank you.
Evening, Commissioner Tom Malenko, Douglas City. Thanks for being here in person and on Zoom. I think this is a much better step towards a public hearing, so I appreciate the effort that went into doing this. I went out and looked at that property, particularly on this issue of easements. We pulled the deed. There is a deeded easement across the property, one deeded easement. In actual fact, there are 3 roads across this property. One accesses a house, which I believe is Mr. Hennis's. One accesses a cultivation site, I think, on his property. And I don't know anybody else's, what's going on with them, but it's a cultivation site. It's not in the licensing program, but that doesn't mean, just like easements can exist and not be on a deed. Another of these driveways approaches at least what was a cultivation site that was also almost certainly illegally cleared. There's still a log deck there that's probably 20 feet high, and I don't mean log, like a slash pile, etc. And those roads cross this property. So I don't know how long they've been there. I don't know if there's some prescriptive easement right there. I went to check that out as regards what's in the deed. So certainly there's a contention, at least on 2 of them, one of which crosses this little L-shaped strip, which is really not even as wide as this room. And I think you can see from the pictures in the report, there's a lot of appliances. There's a couple properties worth of appliances that have been dumped specifically on this strip of land. They didn't come from this applicant or from that property. So I think, fencing your property to keep illegal dumping from happening is a very realistic thing for a landowner to do. Denying trespass across your property is another thing that's very reasonable, particularly if that trespass potentially accesses something that's going to get you in trouble for your own licensing pursuits. So I do think this applicant is going about it properly. In terms of the well and the septic issue, this is a Department of Environmental Health permitted septic, and it is a permitted well. So unless our Department of Environmental Health made mistakes there, I'm going to have to take at face value that these are at the appropriate setbacks and in the appropriate places. I think this sends a good example of the way to do cultivation. And I know we don't like to see variances go against the opposition of neighbors. In this case, I think it's a step in the right direction. And clearly, it's not our usual complaint. It's not a smell issue. There's closer cannabis to that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone else in the room that would like to address this agenda item? All right, is there anyone on Zoom that wants to address agenda item number 4? If you would like to throw your hand up, and we will hear from you. All right. We will close public comment on this item and bring it back to the commission. Commissioner?
Chair Frazier, may I make some comments just right quickly before discussion? That'd be okay?
Yes. If you would like to shed light on something.
I would. I have 3 things written down. Regarding the director's use permit for modular coming in, the manufactured home.
Back.
Sorry,
Okay. Now.
sorry about that delay. Okay, regarding the the issue with the director's use permit and the manufactured home, that is something not being delivered in a timely manner. We've seen that before. That's an issue that can be resolved with a letter of intent. The applicant is stating, hey, this is the date now, and if we don't have that resolved, that manufactured home is not installed by that date, then we request a director's use permit. That's a matter easily solved. Again, we're discussing a variance here. We're not discussing the license, just the variance, the setback. It's, you know, it's hard. It's challenging with these cultivation setbacks to keep it to the matter at hand and not discuss the issues. But I feel, you know, as Bella had said in her report, it's very hard for staff to say what is injurious to the public, what does that mean. That is a challenge, and we did challenge. We were challenged with our recommendation for this variance. It was a very difficult one. Is this injurious? I don't know. That's your call. Not sure if it's supported for the variance. There are concerns about the license in some situations, but I'm not sure if those apply to the variance. Permitting, the well and septic were both permitted. They were permitted by the county too close. That is not the fault of the property owner. They did everything right, so that will have to be addressed at a later time. But that was also discussed when we were reviewing this variance, and we felt that that was not a part of it. They were permitted septics. There is an error. Again, that will have to be corrected in a matter fitting, but they are permitted. They did everything right. And that's what I have.
Thank you. All right. Commissioners.
I guess I'd agree with the spirit of the last comment. What we're talking about here is variance. All the rest of it is interesting, but not necessarily relevant. The easements, encroachments, the fencing, all that really is nothing to do with variance. So I think that is also part of it. The water issue is was all installed under with the county's blessing, and as was stated, that is the issue in play on the objection to this. I personally am inclined to grant the variance.
If I may.
Go ahead.
I think that Laura really addressed all of the issues that I saw with this, and it certainly seems reasonable to me that if there's only one legal easement, then that's the only one that needs to be considered. And fencing off an area that has no legal easement through it is perfectly within, as Mr. Blanco said, it's perfectly within the right of the owner. And I think that this variance should be approved.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I do have some comments. I am sympathetic to Mr. Hennis' concerns. However, you cannot attribute that your water issues, the trash, pollution, other things are directly attributed to the applicant. It might be neighboring properties, as discussed before. One thing, and this has nothing to do with the variance, but one thing that I do not like to hear is the bullying, is the lack of good neighboring relationships. That just strikes to the core of any of us concerning our neighbors. And so, in light of everything going on, I am in favor of the variance. However, I would highly encourage the applicant to address however these concerns have come about, whatever bullying, whatever threats have taken place, to consider this because this variance is up for renewal within a year. So just bear that in mind.
Mr. Matthews, do you have any thoughts on this?
To me, it's a fairly difficult one. I mean, we're getting a variance for a commercial operation and the impacts associated with that in an area that probably has pretty low water use, and that seems a legitimate concern to me. And certainly our track record as a commission is when there have been complaints and concerns from neighboring property owners. I mean, I don't see how we can really get into this dispute over whether they're illegal or not. I mean, we've accepted concerns from neighbors and used that as a finding for denying variance.
No, that's the biggest issue I have with this. That has been the kind of our go-to in the past. Neighbors' complaints was, if the neighbor complained that was within 350 feet, that was a finding enough to deny a variance, because the reason the variance is there is to protect the neighbors that are within 350 feet. Whether they don't like it because of the smell or because they don't like you. It's hard for us to get into the whys of the neighbors' complaints. I know in the past we have granted one variance that I can remember against the wishes of a neighbor, and I was not in favor of it. And I don't like the idea of granting a variance when a neighbor is concerned, because I think that the idea of the setbacks was to protect the neighbors for whatever reason. And I think that by granting the variance, we would be granting the use of the neighbor's property. So that said, I also think that the project, the main concerns of the neighbors could be addressed in the licensing part. So I would like to, my take on it would be that we deny the variance and the neighbors work this out. That would be the best outcome, I think. I don't know how we get to that.
Well, they have to work it out through a continuation.
Well,
we can't deny it.
We can deny the variance and they can work it out through the reapply, or she can, we've also said in the past that grading is not necessarily a bad thing. It can be done properly, and you can move your cultivation area outside that 350 feet, and you don't have to go through the variance every year, not knowing if your neighbor's going to complain. So I'm really not, it doesn't seem like a bad project, but I have a hard time with the idea of granting the variance. That said, does anybody have a motion to make?
I would make the motion, but I'm not sure what I would put down for findings and conditions and all that kind of thing.
I am also confused because it's not an option. Like, I didn't prepare it as an option because I was recommending denial.
Yeah,
So there is no condition of approval or finding.
We will have to make that finding ourselves. That's,
suggestions?
There is a suggestion of a continuance to possibly work things out with the neighbor.
That is an option. I have a hard time with the findings for the same reason Bella did. It's very hard to find that the neighbor didn't have a problem with it when the neighbor definitely has concerns. So that's a hard finding to make.
Were we to continue this, the inference I take is that the conversation you imagine between the neighbors relates to the one objection you raised, which is the water issue. But somehow they have to negotiate a way so that water is available for the applicant's grow and doesn't impact the gentleman next door in a way. Somehow they negotiate that.
Yeah, and really I don't know how the distance from your residence would affect the water usage, so that's something that the neighbors could work out. That is, like I said, that would be in the licensing procedure, if there's a conditional use permit or whatever, somewhere down the line. That's not a setback issue. Water is not a setback issue, so.
That's why I'm in favor of this, because generally, the precedent you referenced of us going with a neighbor's recommendation for denying a variance, it's typically the neighbor identifies issues associated with the marijuana threats. The odor, it's the aesthetics, it's other things. The item here is that it's water, and were we to deny the variance and were the applicant to get the 3-acre conversion and move the grow up the hill, that doesn't add any water to the hill, to the neighborhood. So it just takes it off of our plate and doesn't address the issue of the water. That's my point.
The thing is that this one property may not be the only one that's affecting Mr. Harris's water. And so, I have a difficult time just saying that, well, they need to work out their water issue because it's a much bigger issue than just the two of them. And she has her water board. The water board evidently doesn't see any issue with it. So, well, I don't know. So I would like to make a motion to approve, if I can find my paperwork again. I would like to make a motion to approve the variance request, but we have to have some kind of findings and we have to have conditions. And if we don't have those, I don't personally feel like I can make up the conditions and the findings off the top of my head, and I don't know that we have any choice but to continue it. Unless somebody wants to make a motion to uphold the denial.
I don't know, I'm still, I'm looking back at the concerned neighbor comment, and there is more listed in this than just the water. He in his 3 minutes, he did say that that was his main concern. But there's other concerns in here. So I don't know. It is a tough one. It's a tough call.
We can't force them to work it out.
No, we can't, but,
We can make the suggestion that they do that, but you know, they both seem pretty entrenched in their points of view.
and,
So,
but at the same time, we can't.
I move that I'm going to make a motion here. I move that we continue this.
Okay, we have a motion. Would anyone like to second it?
I will second.
Motion and a second.
Just for clarification, is that to a date certain?
Is it? Diane, would you like to put a date certain on that motion, or?
Yes, do we know, well, it depends on when our next meeting's going. I move that we continue this to our next meeting.
The next meeting is next week.
That might be a little
So that
tough.
might be a little tough. July 9th would be the next planning, regular planning commission meeting.
Okay,
So,
then I move that we continue this to July 9th.
okay,
I hate to do that to the applicant, but
all right, and so we have an amended motion, second, still the same.
I will second again.
Okay, a motion and a second, any competing motions?
I think I'll make a competing motion to deny the variance request and go with staff's recommendation.
Okay, we have a competing motion, and do we have a second for that one? I will second that one myself. Now, we have two motions on the table. We will, any further competing motions before we go any farther? We will do a roll call vote, beginning with Commissioner Matthews' motion, correct?
Correct.
Competing
that is
motion.
correct.
Okay. So,
Okay, roll call vote for Commissioner Matthews' motion. Commissioner McHugh, how do you vote?
No.
Commissioner Matthews, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Stewart, how do you vote?
No.
Commissioner Ford, how do you vote?
No.
Chair Frazier, how do you vote?
aye.
Okay. That is 3-1 on
Motion.
no. Motion denied.
Motion denied. So, going on to.
3-2, I'm sorry.
The other motion is still on the table, so we will need a roll call vote for Commissioner Stewart's motion.
Okay. Roll call for Commissioner Stewart's motion. Commissioner McHugh, how do you vote?
Yes.
Commissioner Matthews, how do you vote?
Nay.
Commissioner Stewart, how do you vote?
Aye.
Commissioner Ford, how do you vote?
Aye.
Chair Frazier, I'm sorry, how do you vote?
Okay.
So that is
Motion
3-2,
carried.
motion passed.
To continue this item to July 9th, so. Staff, I don't know what we're supposed to do with that. I don't know
Chair, may I ask a clarification question? This is Margaret.
Yes.
It's just as a clarification, it's continued to the July meeting. Is it a direction to staff to come back with conditions on approval?
Yes.
Okay, so that's a direction from 3 board members. We can bring that back as an addition to the agenda item, but we do need that direction.
Okay, so that would be direction to staff to have a second option for granting the variance and findings to go with that, I guess.
Thank you.
So,
come back with findings.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes, we will. Thank you.
all right.
Well, either generic finding, because staff's starting to struggle with this, because they've already
It is,
been recommendation.
it's gonna be,
So I think it means come back with findings that are either generic, and because so many of our variances have the same finding.
yes.
Or fill in the blank, don't fill it in if you don't know the answer, and we will fill in that in the meeting. I don't want to put it on you
Yeah, to go.
to come up with findings you don't believe in, or you make it up.
And I would just throw out the suggestion that it would be very beneficial if the applicant and the neighbors could talk things over and figure out what the variance issue is. Because the variance is really about setbacks. It's not about other issues in the licensing. It's not about neighbor conflicts. It's about the setback from the grow site to the resident. And that's what we're considering here. So it would be helpful if we could get some more direction in that area rather from the applicant and the complainant, so we can more well address that actual issue. With that, I guess we will move on to planning commissioner reports.
Yes, I wanted to inquire on the status of the Smith mining operation in Junction City, if there's been any developments, anything that we can, give any updates we can give to the Junction City folks in regards to that.
I'm seeking direction on agendizing this item. And we've heard from the community. They have been very consistent there. I have been talking to the mine operator as well. I think we're at the time. There has been some stalling because of the public's inability to participate. But as we talked about and mentioned earlier, business has to go on, and these folks have been waiting. So I feel it's time at least to agendize this item to at least provide you information, public testimony, and then direct how you'd like to proceed would be my recommendation and how I feel that should go. There is an option for planning director to put agenda item on for revocation and modification. And that's what I have been struggling with. So my inclination is to put it on as agenda item, get your direction, and go from there.
Okay, thank you, Director. I have one more thing I'd like to say.
Follow-up question on that one.
Yes.
So also I'm interested in that. The item that you would agendize, the action you would be asking, would be a modification to the permit?
I guess that is where I am struggling a little bit on how to proceed. This is new territory. I've never had to do this. So with the use permit project. Yes, that is an action the planning director can take, revocation and modification. I guess what my inclination is to not take that step until I receive direction from more direction.
You want direction from the commission?
From the commission, and a chance for the public to, and the mining operator
To weigh in.
to weigh in before taking that step to put it on for actual modification or relocation.
Yes, I have one more thing I'd like to mention. This will be my last meeting as a planning commissioner. I have been asked by Jeremy Brown to step down for perceived conflict of interest. Without going into much detail, I have recused myself on several items that I believe might have had a conflict with my employer. I do not agree with the decision, but I accept it. I know we serve at the pleasure of the county supervisor that represents our specific district. With that said, I just want to say I am very grateful, honored, and for the privilege to have served on this planning commission. Staff and commissioners alike, I hold the highest regard for you. And I appreciate all the consideration you have given me over these years. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll miss you, Richard.
Thank you.
So I have a question about the clinic. Is it operational? Did they get final? Because the architectural work that they were supposed to do to improve the appearance that has not been done. The mansard roof. And secondly, I heard from the neighbor that it's extremely noisy, and we aren't even in the hot part of the year, and there was a requirement on Commissioner Ford's motion to approve the project that a noise study had to be done. So I'm just raising that to see whether the project has been final without the architectural work that we spent a long time going back and forth over. How that could have slipped through the cracks if it's, and secondly, whether the noise study can be done when that's available for permission.
Yes, the noise study has been completed. It is available. I can provide you copies.
Okay.
It was fairly recently, but it has been done. There was, in the noise study that was done by a professional acoustical engineer, there were no mitigations recommended for noise attenuation.
So he said there were no impacts to the neighbors?
The impacts were not significant enough for noise attenuation, so, but I'd be glad to provide that to you and go over it in more detail. We are catching up on some of the details. Lisa and myself are catching up on some of the details of the history of that project. There was a certificate of occupancy.
So it's been fine.
They can operate, it is not final. There's still some work to be done.
Good to know.
Yes, and there are, there's some, we have the box to review and understanding the landscaping and the architectural features that still needs to be accomplished.
Thank you.
Not a done deal yet, but has been some progress, and again, we need to catch up, because there's a lot of information with all the work that you did do for us to make sure before everything is signed off, that it's done correctly.
Anything else? Commissioner Stewart? You have any?
No,
All right.
I have not, except to say, Richard, you will be very missed.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you. Appreciate it.
All right.
I have nothing, but I'll see you next week.
Can you just confirm the calendar?
Uh-huh.
Calendar, there's a meeting next week?
There's a meeting next Thursday,
No meeting late in June.
no meeting late in June, and then on July 9th, will be the next regular meeting.
All right.
And I want to express my appreciation.
We are adjourned.
Bye.
Forward.
I won't be here.
Or the 45th.
At least you tell me. You got your money worth out of your final meeting.
One less headache to worry about.